Welcome everybody to Module 4. My name's Simon Brook. I'm a Cloud Solution Architect at Microsoft in the Customer Success Unit. So I work primarily directly with customers on applications and infrastructure environments with a focus on data center migration. I'm here today to talk to you about profile and image management within WVD. So it's really important for businesses to define a deployment and management strategy when it comes to implementing Windows Virtual Desktop. There's many different deployment methods available for Windows Virtual Desktop. For instance, images can be deployed directly from the Azure Marketplace. You can use GitHub, and Azure Resource Manager templates allow flexibility to customize deployments and gain consistency. Successful management of Windows Virtual Desktop can be achieved in many different ways. The Azure portal allows you to currently deploy host pools, manage Windows virtual machines, and set up conditional access to WVD services. The whole platform is backed by REST APIs, meaning you can directly call Windows Virtual Desktop and build your own complex workflows. We've seen a number of third parties create their own user interfaces as well to manage their WVD environments. Of course, PowerShell commands are native to managing WVD and are the best option when it comes to deploying a Windows Virtual Desktop estate. With features such as Azure integration and desired state configuration, you can ensure your deployments are as hands-off as possible whilst remaining compliant with your standards. There's many other options for managing Windows Virtual Desktop as well. Partners offer solutions from companies such as Nerdio, Lakeside and Liquidware. Citrix and VMware both provide native image management capabilities as well within their hybrid WVD management offerings. Hosting partners, who have many customers, can take advantage of the multi-tenancy support within WVD to scale the number of customers they manage through a single point of service. So there's a number of important steps to remember when you're creating your host images for your host pool. The links in this slide do have further details, but it's really important to remember to install your supporting service agents locally on the master image itself. It's also key to remember that Windows Virtual Desktop requires other variations in configuration from a standard desktop. For instance, if you're deploying OneDrive, you need to make sure it's installed in a per machine mode and not a per user mode. Doing the latter would see OneDrive reinitialize every time a new user logged in, and it would cause performance issues and in general not a great user experience. It's also really important when you install the apps that you check the generalization settings will not be wiped out by sysprep. One of the key requirements from Windows Virtual Desktop when creating the image is you shut it down invoking sysprep with the generalization command. It's worth checking with the application vendors if this is supported and that it won't wipe out configuration. A key success criteria to managing any virtual desktop infrastructure is the ability for you to regularly update the base virtual machine image, so with required security and quality patches. Sometimes you'll have a new application requirement, and sometimes your application vendor will also release security patches. The good news is that Windows Virtual Desktop host pools are backed by regular Azure virtual machines. So if you wanted to, you could continue to use your current update management tools if you use SCCM, Azure Update Manager, or third-party tools to update your virtual machines. Updating the running host pools may cause some challenges in larger environments where you need to ensure consistency across your infrastructure. We'd always recommend an approach where you treat the supporting hosts as disposable rather than incrementally build upon them each time. This allows you to replace them with new fresh hosts that have the correct updates and patches on from a master image that can be tested beforehand before rolling out into production. It's a really good idea to run a validation host pool alongside your production host pools, which is a mirror image of your production system. It ensures that any patches and changes you roll out can be fully tested before swapping them over in your production host pools. In order to manage a virtual desktop environment well, it's a really good idea to keep the number of gold or master images you have down to a minimum. By using best practices with technology such as FSLogix, we can leverage app masking, which means you can have a single gold image with all your line of business applications on, and you can hide various apps from different users. I'll go into this in more detail further along the module. It's really important to establish a repeatable, consistent and tested process for updating your virtual desktops. If you don't have a decent naming convention or a tracking system for your virtual machine master images, you can find that you get confused with who's installed what application update where. So it's really important that you get that process ironed out before you start the deployment and update process. If I was to summarize some of the steps required to deliver an update approach of a production host pool, it would be the following. So you take a copy of your baseline host pool image, the one that's running in production, install your updates to the applications and operating system, any new applications that you need. Then you deploy that new image into your validation host pool. You can then test your new image functionality, ask a bunch of test users to make sure that it's working as expected, and then deploy it into your production host pool alongside the old hosts. On those existing old hosts, you can set the allow new sessions flag to no, which means that users won't be routed into those old hosts. They'll only go to the new ones. You can then send a notification to the currently logged in users that their session will be terminated or logged off in and out of hours time as you see fit. Once the users have all logged off, you can then cut over to the new hosts. You can delete the old hosts from the production host pool. Most of what I've just described you can script to make sure that you ensure a consistent delivery. There are third-party tools out there who provide GUIs for completing these steps as well. Some of them I mentioned in the previous slide. And here's a diagram of the process. Something else to consider when you're maintaining Windows Virtual Desktop deployments are the WVD agent updates. So the Windows Virtual Desktop master VM gets an agent that's installed onto it, and this gets updated automatically on a monthly basis by Microsoft. So it should not cause any issues, but it's considered best practice to use your validation host pool to test your applications once the agents have been updated. In doing this, you make sure that everything's ready to then roll out into production. This does mean, by default, turning off automatic agent updates on your production host pools and only allowing those updates to automatically apply to your validation host pools. Once the testing has been validated, you can then manually apply these agent updates to your production hosts, or you can roll out the new image alongside your security and quality updates. So now I'm going to talk about FS Logics. So through our acquisition of FS Logics, we can provide an optimized experience for users when they're logging on to Windows Virtual Desktop environments. So we can leverage profile containers and Office 365 containers for delivering a consistent user experience across sessions. This is key when it comes to managing non-persistent desktop environments. We can also use the likes of application masking for providing simplified image management, and we have Java redirection as well, which ensures there's a reduced attack surface when you're using different versions of Java to support different line of business applications. Some of the benefits of using FSLogic profile containers is the profile itself is now held within a VHD file that's located on a network share. So during login, the VHD file with the containers in it will be presented via the FSLogic filter driver at the operating system level. The advantage of this is that it provides extremely fast login times, and because it's not streaming that profile data over a network share as the user accesses it, it virtually eliminates all profile corruption. It works alongside your existing user environment management platforms, such as VMware UEM, or the Citrix profile management platform as well. With Office 365 containers, we're building upon the same model that's being leveraged with your profile containers. It's taking advantage of being able to use some of the Office caches, such as Outlook OST files, Windows Search, and the OneDrive cache. It gives customers the capability to use Outlook cache mode on non-persistent VDI environments, as the cache itself will now be placed in the user's Office 365 container in a mounted VHD file on a network share. All benefits of Office containers are automatic when you already use profile containers, and there's no need to implement Office containers if the profile containers are your primary solution for managing profiles. It's worth noting though that you can still use Office containers if you're optionally using a different profile management solution. Application masking is a really good feature provided by FSLogix. It's basically where we have a single gold image with all your line of business apps on, for example, 30 or 40 of them, and you're using app masking technology to hide away the majority of these applications for different group memberships. So users will only ever see the applications that they should be using. It keeps down the image management effort required for desktops, and it gives users a better experience as they're not seeing a bloated desktop with a start menu full of applications that they're never going to access. Some of the security vulnerabilities that are associated with Java have led FSLogix to deliver a solution to lock down an associated version of Java to a specific required application. This reduces the attack surface on the Java version in question, and in turn ensures that erroneous Java processes they're not running when they're not required. The good news is FS Logics is included in its entirety, providing you have one of the listed licenses in this slide. So if you're entitled to use WVD, you're entitled to use FS Logics without any extra charges. So we'll go through some of the detail now when it comes to installing FS Logics on your environment. There are key features such as an agent, the file share you need to set up, any group policies or policies you need to set locally, and how app masking might work. The agent itself is a agent on the virtual machine image, is a publicly available download on the Microsoft website, and there's 32 and 64-bit versions. You simply download the agent, install it to the default directory. You don't need a license key. And then if you're using a master image and you want to configure the settings locally for it, you can go into the virtual machines registry editor and you can set the file share locations for the profile or office container VHD files. As stated earlier, it's best practice to create the file share which holds the VHD container as close as possible to your WVD infrastructure in your relevant Azure region. We recommend either using a native Azure file share, which have Active Directory authentication currently in preview, or use Azure NetApp files, which can scale to 320,000 IOPS per share. It's worth considering if you have a large number of users and performance is crucial. I'm well aware that it's been talked about before in previous slides, so I won't go into too much detail here. ADMX files can be uploaded to your domain's sysfile share, and you can centrally manage your FS Logics policies. You pop the ADMX and ADML files in your correct directory, and you'll be able to edit options in the GPO management console. You can also use these GPO objects locally if you want to, and you'd rather do this than edit the local registry setting. For app masking, policies can be created on any machine which has FS Logic software installed. Specifically, the application is called the FS Logics Apps Rule Editor. You create your policies, you select the apps which you wish to mask, and then you apply it to the groups who can't see the app, who can see the app. These configurations are saved in files in the FXA and FXR format, and they need to be placed on your master virtual machine image before deployment. This way, anyone who logs into the relevant Active Directory groups will then be masked from those applications. So I'm going to touch now on MSIX App Attach, which is currently in public preview. Traditionally, a physical workstation has all the applications, profile data, and operating system configuration on the same box. Everything's tightly coupled together. With virtual desktop scenarios, we need to look at how we can decouple these processes while still maintaining the performance, reliability, and usability of standalone machines. So by using FS Logics, we've solved the issue with the roaming user profiles between machines. But what about applications? It's really hard to keep maintaining a master gold image full of 100 line of business apps, for example, and users will likely now be logging into a non-persistent pool of machines. So they'll get a new machine each time. So it's going to be almost better to have a blanker machine as possible and then mount the applications as and when they need them. And this is where MSIX App Attach comes along. MSIX App Attach allows you to mount an application to a blank Windows virtual machine image in a similar way to FS Logic's profile containers. So this means that users can have access to only the line of business applications they need, while simultaneously keeping your image management process for administrators much, much simpler. By having minimal applications installed on your base virtual machine image, you're keeping the management overhead down significantly, reducing the attack surface of your virtual machines, and you're keeping the size of that base image to a minimum. Newer applications are already stored in an MSIX format. However, this doesn't mean legacy applications won't work. So using the MSIX app packaging tool provided by Microsoft, you can package your legacy apps into the new format, ready to be mounted into your virtual desktop sessions. And just to reiterate Microsoft's stance on application compatibility, any virtualized applications you have currently running as a published apps on RDSH hosts will work on Windows 10 multi-session. Microsoft's App Assure program puts forward our fast track engineers, and it helps advise software developers on any steps needed to make an application that was running on Windows 7 or 8.1 compatible with Windows 10. So just to summarize then, we've gone over some image management techniques, how FS Logics works for profile containers, and the benefits of the upcoming MSIX App Attach software. I'd like to thank you for your time today. If you have any questions, please let me know.